The ruthless elimination of hurry by John Mark Comer has completely blown up in the evangelical Christian space, having sold hundreds of thousands of copies. But it's become so big that I think it's starting to reach and impact audiences it was never intended for. But in this video, I'm going to make the argument that there's been a ruthless elimination of something else. And this something else may be impacting a specific demographic of young Christians negatively. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. Before I was doing this, I was actually on staff at my church from 2013 to 2015 doing media and preaching. And then after that, I was actually a full-time musician from 2015 to 2020 before my YouTube channel blew up. I say that to say I've actually been at all different types of seasons of life. So this book actually is for someone like me. And if you want to hear me go deeper on some of the takeaways I have from this book and potentially have a conversation with John Mark Comer on this channel, let me know in the comment section. But please make sure you're subscribed, as a huge percentage of people that watch this channel, unfortunately, are not. All right, let's get into my extended thoughts and what this potential elimination may be and how it could be hurting Christians all over the West. Okay, so let me re-emphasize that what I'm about to be describing is not necessarily issues I have with the book, okay? What I'm going to be talking about is the ruthless elimination of godly ambition. So what am I talking about? Well, I think what happens is one of the lies many people buy into that keeps them stuck and not making the progress they want, especially when they're younger, specifically with younger men, is they buy in prematurely into this idea of balance, that you need to have balance in order to be faithful to God, faithful to your family, faithful to your calling. And in a moment, I'm going to go to the scriptures and make a case that I don't really think that balance is something that we always need to have depending on the season of life that we're in. Now, let me just say that a lot of the things that are addressed in this book, specifically hurry, busyness, not having time to Sabbath, not resting, I think are all real issues. And I think are specifically speaking to guys like John Mark Comer, who was a pastor of a mega church, fairly successful as a professional, and then pivoted to a more slower pace of life. And let me tell you, I think there's a lot of people that need to do that are wrapped up in the busyness of life, especially in major cities, and really do need to slow down. But what I also think is that oftentimes this message can hit people that it wasn't intended to hit. So how is that presented is this idea of balance, of we need to have a perfect 6 to 8 hour workday for a specific number of days a week, to make sure we have a perfect Sabbath every week, to make sure that we get rid of our smartphone and get a dumb phone so that we can't check our email and that we're never on social media, and that we have our carved out 3 weeks of vacation no matter what, and we're super locked into all of those things with solitude as a pressing and consistent issue. But balance is not something that's necessary for every season that we're in, okay? And let me show you guys a passage. This is specifically from Proverbs chapter 6, and this blows the idea of balance completely out of the window. Proverbs chapter 6 opens in verse 1, which it says, "My child, if you have put up security for a friend's debt or agreed to guarantee the debt of a stranger, if you have trapped yourself by your agreement and are caught by what you've said." So first notice that there's a condition to what's about to come next, okay? If you've made a mess of your finances, if you made a mess of your life, if you made a mess by, in this specific case, co-signing or agreeing to cover a stranger's debt or even a friend's debt in this situation, here's what Solomon is going to say next in the following verses. Check this out. Verse 3, "Follow my advice and save yourself, for you have placed yourself at your friend's mercy. Now swallow your pride," and I would argue your need for perfect balance. "Go and beg to have your name erased. Don't put it off. Do it now. Don't rest until you do." Okay? And the very next verse says, "Save yourself like a gazelle escaping from a hunter, like a bird fleeing from a net." So what is this getting at? This is getting at that sometimes in certain situations, in certain seasons of life, we aren't going to have perfect balance. We aren't going to have the perfect Sabbath day. We aren't going to have the perfect time cut out to make sure we turn off all the devices and don't work a little bit extra on the weekends. Because if you've made a mess of your situation through perhaps being irresponsible, through perhaps things happening that you had no control over, that there's a time and a place where you're to throw off your pride, where you throw off your expectations and that we are to not rest until we clean the situation up. Now, in the NIV version of this, he says, so do this, my son, to free yourself, since you have fallen into your neighbor's hands. Go to the point of exhaustion and give your neighbor no rest. Verse 4 says, allow no sleep to your eyes and no slumber to your eyelids. Now, is this being literal? I don't think so. I think this is actually a use of hyperbole here, okay? Allow no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids is actually hyperbole. I think it's okay to sleep if you've made a mess, but you need to change some things around. And then it goes into the idea of a gazelle running from the hands of its hunter like a bird from the snare of the fowler, okay? So what am I getting at here? What I'm getting at is rather simple. There are times, and specifically seasons, earlier on in life where many of us need to be more intentional to go and lock in for a specific season to seize a specific opportunity that we have presented to us. For me, when I first started out on YouTube, I knew that I needed to zone in, and that looked like oftentimes working 6 to 7 days a week for a short window of time to get the result that I needed, because I saw the opportunity and I saw what was happening when I really got serious on blowing up my channel in 2020. When me and my wife were getting out of debt, this is actually where I heard the term from, going through the Dave Ramsey baby steps. He talks about gazelle intensity. For 18 months, we went scorched earth. I'm talking about we didn't see the inside of a restaurant. We didn't go out to eat. We didn't go on vacations. We didn't do anything. Okay, we just worked and hunkered down. And within 18 months, we were debt free. We paid off a substantial amount of debt. And when they did the studies on people who walked the baby steps by Dave Ramsey, and they apply this principle of gazelle intensity, they find out that most people can be debt free in 18 to 24 months. Now, what I'm not talking about is just finances and debt. I'm talking about understanding the season that you're in, especially if you're a young man, and looking at the opportunities that are presented to you in the technologically advanced and incredibly interconnected world that we have, that you can take inventory of what skills do you have, what opportunities are in front of you, and what things do you want to change about your current situation. And this lack of godly ambition, this elimination of removing young men's ability to try, I think is very dangerous and very debilitating. And so again, this is no knock on John Mark Comer. I think there are older men or men like myself that are in their 30s and 40s who have families, who have careers, that yes, we need to find time to slow down. Nowadays, I don't work 6-7 days a week. I only work 4 days a week. I have a lot of Sabbath. I get to take naps. I get to turn off my phone sometimes, right? But when you are trying to get something to spark, I don't think that the application of eliminating all of these things that are actually tools is advantageous. It would be like talking to someone that needs to get into strength training and their rebuttal is, well, what if I overtrain? Hey, bud, how about we just get you to train before you overtrain? It's like someone that wants to get into training and they go, well, what if I get too bulky and I get too many muscles? Hey, you don't have any muscles right now. How about we just get you to develop some muscles? It's like talking to someone who goes, hey, I know I need to clean up my financial situation, but what if I make too much money and I become too successful and then it just ruins me? It's like, hey, right now, you're really struggling. You're not even able to cover all your expenses and be on your own and provide for yourself. And the scriptures say that those who do not provide for the needs of their family, specifically their immediate family, is worse than a non-believer and is denied the faith. And so I think sometimes we create these hypothetical situations in a distant future that have nothing to do with our current reality. And in the present, we're called to be faithful with our time, talent, and treasure, to be faithful with the opportunities that are in front of us, instead of looking for balance and instead of trying to eliminate a healthy, godly ambition, to be faithful with the opportunities that are in front of us, with the seasons that we have, the skill sets that we have, the relationships that we have, and ultimately being born in a time such as this, where we could do the utmost amount of good while also helping the most amount of people and bringing glory to God with what we've been trusted. Let me be clear. I don't have any gripes with the principles in this book, but I will say this. If you're younger, if you've made a mess of certain areas of your life, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry may not be the book for you in this season. And what's really affecting you may be this cultural ruthless elimination of ambition that's keeping you stuck from moving into what God may have for you. A lot of us talk about the supernatural experience that we have when we encounter a living God through the cross of Jesus. When we acknowledge that he lived the life we couldn't live, he died a death we should have died on the cross in our place for our sins. We have a supernatural encounter, but then we forget that that supernatural encounter should transfer into a super practical life, that the supernatural should cause a super practical change in the way that we steward the things that we've been entrusted with. And if you want to get some practical steps on how you can do just that, check out our playlist on how to discover your purpose now. We'll have this pinned up over here for you. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.